It's another hot day in Texas, and so today I'm going to spend some time in the kitchen and show you how I make some really simple pickles. The simplest version of these pickles would just involve cucumbers, vinegar, and salt. That's actually how my grandma used to make pickles. I like to spice them up a little bit though by putting some peppers and garlic, because I really enjoy dill pickles. I add some dill. I also add black peppercorns to my pickles and mustard seeds in order to keep them crisp a little longer. These are some really simple pickles. It doesn't take any cooking or heating up the brine or anything. The salt and vinegar will draw enough water out of these cucumbers to make enough juice to cover them. And if you eat them quick enough, you won't really need them covered anyway. If you just have a couple of cucumber plants, you're not going to have any trouble keeping these crisp because they'll be gone in no time. I've got a bunch of pickling cucumbers. Some are really tiny, some are bigger, and then I've got a few slicing cucumbers. These are meant to be eaten fresh, just sliced in a salad, but I'm gonna make some pickle spears out of them because they're nice straight cucumbers. I've got some little bird's eye chili and some banana peppers. I've never used these banana peppers in pickles before, but I want to show today that these pickles are really versatile. You can use up whatever you got in the garden. If you use your creativity, you can make a really interesting pickle, and you won't ever get tired of it because, one, they're really good pickles, and two, you can add all sorts of different stuff to these. But at its essence, this is a super basic, I guess, base recipe for pickles. After giving these cucumbers a good rinse, I like to cut off maybe 1/2 inch from the stem end, because this stem end in this heat tends to get really bitter. And then I'll take a thin slice off of the end and I'll see how it tastes. If it's bitter, I'll cut more off. That is really bitter, so I'm going to cut more off of the end of this. Try another slice. Just that much further down the cucumber is nice and sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and slice this cucumber into rounds. You might like them thicker, you might like them thinner. Just do it how you like. You can cut these with a mandolin, but if you do, each slice will be the exact same thickness. And I like some variance between each of my slices, so I cut it by hand, and I don't worry about getting it the same on each slice. The smaller the cucumber is, the less likely it is to be bitter, but I just test each one as I'm cutting it up and make sure I don't have bitter cucumbers. Once I get done cutting up my cucumbers, before I stuff the jars, I like to put my spices into them. I do maybe about 1/2 teaspoon of mustard seed in each jar, around a teaspoon of whole peppercorns, 3 or 4 bird's eye chilies with a little nick in the neck and the blossom end of each one. Usually I add a whole clove of garlic to each of the jars, but these are pretty big garlic cloves, so I'm gonna put 2 between the 3 jars. Some people smash their garlic. I like to just cut it into slivers. Each jar will get a little bit of dill, just enough to cover the bottom of the jar pretty much. For a pint jar, I put 1.5 teaspoons of salt. You can use pink salt or whatever you like. I just use pickling salt because I know for sure that it's non-iodized. The jar that only got 3 of the Thai chilies, I'm going to put some of this banana pepper into. And each pint's going to get 4 tablespoons of distilled white vinegar. A cup is 16 tablespoons. So this being 4 tablespoons. You could also just measure out a 1/4 cup. I'm going to stick with tablespoons because I already have my measuring spoons out. The cucumbers are really going to shrink once all the liquid comes out of them, because osmosis is going to draw a bunch of liquid due to the vinegar and the salt that's being added in. And so I like to layer mine in about as flat as I can get them as I go. And then I push them down too. That was just about the perfect amount. I got a little bit of extra dill. I'm just going to stuff a little bit on the top of each one of these. Now you might be looking at these and thinking, that's not a lot of liquid. I alluded to it earlier. As these sit in the refrigerator, they're going to produce a lot more juice because it's going to draw tons of liquid out of the cucumbers. And the tighter you pack them, the higher the level of the juice will end up coming up. You'll want to shake these up once or twice a day. After they get soaked in well, you can leave them in the fridge, and as long as they're submerged, they should be fine for a long time. I've got pickles right now from probably 6 months ago that were made this exact same way. I made a bunch for Christmas gifts and handed them out and had some extra. And because they're in our storage building refrigerator, they haven't been eaten and they're still as crisp as can be. In fact, I'll go grab some and show you just how crisp they are. These are pickles from just before Christmas. Today's June 29th, so at least 6 months ago these got made, closer to 6.5. They still smell really good. And they're as crunchy as ever. I think with homegrown cucumbers, these are going to taste even better. In fact, I know they taste even better because I have 2 whole quarts in the fridge right now. These were made over the last few weeks. I'll just make a pint at a time as I get the ingredients and keep piling them in. And these are pretty much full to the brim. These being sliced thin, they won't last as long, or they won't stay crispy as long. I won't guarantee that yours will last this long because I don't know what you're going to be pulling them out of the jar with. If you pick them out with your fingers, you know, you're more likely to contaminate what you've got. But if you use a toothpick or a clean fork or a knife or something, I think they'll last a long time. And if they're untouched and kept in the fridge, you can see just how long they last. I think these are pretty much as user-friendly, beginner-friendly as pickles get. And because you don't have to make a ton of them at once, you can just make 1 jar at a time. You don't have to water bath them or anything like that. You can just keep stacking them up throughout the season. You don't have to have just a ton of cucumber plants going. Just make what you can, save what you can, make them the way you like them. If you're not enjoying what's coming out of your garden, well, probably wasn't worth near as much effort as you had to put into it. If you like your produce as much as I like these pickles, well, it feels a lot more worthwhile. Well, I got sidetracked and totally forgot about these pickles for about a week and a half. I've given them a shake now and then, but I forgot to try them. But I thought I'd give them a try today. This was my first time making pickles with slicing cucumbers, and I've heard that they should be good, so. They're good. The banana pepper I added adds a nice kick. It's a little bit spicy, but more than anything, it just added some nice pepper flavor. But I'd make these again. They're very crunchy, and I find that these stay that way for a long time. Since there's no heat involved, they don't get broke down like they would if you were to can them, and so they stay crisp for a long time. It seems like these slicing cucumbers are actually a little bit sweeter than the pickling cucumbers. They're just as crunchy, maybe a little bit thicker skin, but they're really nice. I would definitely make these again. I feel like the main takeaway from this pickle recipe should be that you can make these as complicated or as simple as you want, but as long as you put stuff that you enjoy into these pickles, they should turn out really nice. I hope you try making some of these pickles. Start out simple, add things as you figure out what you like. If you make them, I hope that you enjoy them. I know I definitely do. See you in the next one.